So now hold on. We get to a situation where, okay, now we're about to talk about Notre Dame, which is your school, by the way.
Yes.
Okay. Notre Dame can, and it's been reported for a long time here, this is nothing new, is going to be unable to have an automatic qualifier because they don't play in a conference championship game. They're not in a conference, clearly. Number one, do you agree with that?
I hate that this kind of okay. You know what? I don't care. Notre Dame, I think, is a very different circumstance because Notre Dame plays
it's a very different.
Yeah, it is because Notre Dame consistently plays one of the hardest schedules in the country every single year. They deliberately, intentionally schedule a difficult schedule.
Then what do you, before we talk about Notre Dame here, then what do you call the SEC and Big Ten schedules?
I'm not saying that
versus the Big 12. So you just proved my point.
But they play a number. They have consistently played a number of the top teams in the SEC and the Big Ten over the past decade. They've played Georgia. They're playing Texas A&M this upcoming year. They played Ohio State back-to-back. My point is here, and what I wanted to talk about with this, Blake, and why they got screwed. Jack Swarbrick was one of the original architects for this.
He was.
So we don't have a right to complain.
Which is the Notre Dame's former athletic director, just so people that don't know. Okay.
I will be the first to say here, they don't have a right to complain because Swarbrick was the one who agreed to this. They don't. They don't. We don't. But I have a right to bitch at Jack Swarbrick, who has done a number of things to negatively position the team that I root for. He screwed us over a number of times with hirings and the way things have been handled. And here we are now by not putting up more of a fight in order to find some sort of a loophole for Notre Dame to get in. There should be some sort of ruling that allows if Notre Dame is all I'm asking is if Notre Dame is undefeated, they should be allowed to qualify because they are one of the few remaining independents to fit in as an automatic qualifier. I'm not asking for them to be an automatic qualifier just because the committee liked what they did this year. They deserve, if they are undefeated with the schedule that they play, should be enough proof that they deserve to be an automatic qualifier. Swarbrick screwed us out of that. He's the one who screwed us out of that by not putting up a fight. But I don't think that that is an unfair statement to make in this discussion.
It is. Can I tell you why?
Why?
Because you will never play in a conference championship game. Like ever. You're already getting a bye. So in theory, you would have 2 byes. You can't not be in a conference. So let me give an example. It's unfair to literally, you were talking about what's fair and unfair. It's literally unfair to everybody else on planet Earth in college football for them to have to play a conference championship game and for Notre Dame not to.
It's less about having the week off and having that bye week.
Joe, you play college football for far too long. You know what a bye week does for all of us.
I'm saying that it has more to do with them getting unfavorable matchups. Them having to realistically, that if they can't have an AQ, the highest that they can be seeded is 5. And I believe if they end up as the 5 seed, that would present them a difficult not a super difficult first round matchup, but the second round matchup would not be easy. They wouldn't be able to position themselves to be one of the top 4 teams to have a easier path. They are always consistently, because of this shitty decision-making and negotiating, are always going to have one of the more difficult paths to get to the national championship game. They dug themselves a hole.
You also don't have to play a ranked opponent in a conference championship game. Like what everybody in the Big Ten is going to do. Like, for example, even if you had to play Iowa, Joe, you're still playing Iowa. Like, even if you're playing, well, I guess we really can't. Okay, we'll just do this. Imagine not having the week off when Georgia has to play Alabama or Alabama has to play Georgia, however you want to word it. It's a big difference, brother. It's a massive difference because they could easily lose a game against Alabama, Georgia. And I'm going to be real with you. Alabama could have lost to anybody this year. Now they had Nick Saban, but you and I both know they could have lost to a lot of teams this year. But even though they pulled out those games, my only point is I don't see this as an issue for Notre Dame. Can I tell you why?
Why? Because
you're going to have a bye week, okay, when everybody's playing conference championship games. And if you're high enough a seed, you're going to have a playoff game at home. You can play the same number of games that Georgia or Texas or Michigan, Ohio State, Oregon. You'll all play the same number of games. It just comes in different weeks.
If I'm correct, the first round of this playoff is not immediately following the conference championship
like 2.5 weeks, I believe. But my point is, Joe,
I just don't know how much of an advantage that is that they don't have to play in a conference championship game.
Then
There's going to be other teams too that don't have to play in a conference championship game that are going to be.
They don't have automatic qualifiers, which is the argument.
That's not why I'm bringing that up, though. I'm just saying that it's not a hindrance, and it's not going to hold back teams because they have to play an extra game and they have to play in their conference championship game. It is not some massive holdback that they have to play them.
Can I be honest? I know you're going to call me crazy here. I think it's a massive advantage
that they don't have to play. You're saying that it's an advantage for Notre Dame.
They don't have an automatic qualifier. Yeah, I do. And let me tell you why. Because if you're 5 playing 12 at a playoff game at home, that's a big moneymaker, massive moneymaker. On your own gate, ticket, tailgating to the economy, it's a big deal. I think Swarbrick actually, believe it or not, Joe, the only way you get it is to get it to be in a conference, right? Like to get an automatic bid. But could you imagine a playoff game? Joe, imagine, I don't know. Well, because it'd probably be a number 12 team. But no, it wouldn't. It wouldn't have to be. Joe, imagine. I'll give you one. Imagine Brian Kelly returns to South Bend in a playoff game. By the way, you didn't play in a championship game 2.5 weeks before. You mean to tell me that that's not a massive deal for Notre Dame? You're all going to play the same number of games, and you get a playoff game at home. So you can't have it both ways. You can't not play in a conference championship game and then win an automatic qualifier because your schedule's undefeated. Because you know what the new AD is going to do? Y'all are going to put – let me ask you this question. You have said multiple times on this show already that next year that their schedule is really light. Did you not?
Yeah, it is. It is pretty light next year.
Now, what happens if they go undefeated and Texas plays, which they could, Texas plays 6 ranked opponents this year. 6 ranked opponents as of right now, which we would project them to do.
But wait. But this circumstance that I'm bringing up is not for the scenario of this upcoming year because
well, then
their resume next year, if they go undefeated, as I've mentioned before, is not going to be super impressive to go undefeated. They're actually probably not, if they go undefeated, going to get that 5 spot. They're probably more likely to give that 5 spot to somebody who lost their conference championship game. I'm willing to bet right now that that's going to happen.
Kelly coming up there, a revenge game.
But this is the whole
sidebar. Can we go?
Oh yeah.
If that happens, can we go?
I mean, the committee is going to do it deliberately. They tried to do it this year with the Relia Quest ball. I mean, it's going to
local Chili's because y'all only have Chili's in South Bend, right?
Stop it. Cut the bullshit. Okay, cut the bullshit. My whole point here, though, with Notre Dame is that for the scenario where the times that they've gone undefeated and they've beaten teams like Clemson that were top ranked teams, and they've gone along and say they had beaten Ohio State and they have these opportunities to play these top premier programs in the past. They've played Michigan. If they have a schedule and a resume that is comparable, if not better than, which in the future they're going to deliberately try to schedule as many difficult non-con opponents as possible to bolster that resume. If they face as difficult of a schedule as Texas, this is where the scenario comes into play. If they play as many ranked opponents as an SEC team and they go undefeated, it's bullshit that in this scenario, as we've talked about here, that if we have a 2-loss conference winner, by the way, it's plausible that we have a 2-loss SEC champion. That is very plausible with the amount of teams and the new conference format. It's unfair to Notre Dame to automatically be at a hindrance that they have to play the extra game thing. I understand, to your point, it is an advantage that they have that week off. But to be given a more difficult path when they've earned the right to be playing an easier path, to play easier opponents, is where I'm saying that it's bullshit. And I'm not saying that it's bullshit on the playoffs end. And I'm not trying to put my hand up and say, woe is me. Again, I'm pointing my blame at Swarbrick for agreeing to this and not trying to put up some sort of a loophole fight in order to get them into the mix as one of the automatic qualifiers. And it would solve your problem.
What's my problem?
If they get an automatic qualifier for going undefeated, it automatically bumps out one of the shitty conference winners that you brought up earlier.
How many times well, no, you can't do that. Because again, they will have less number of games than everybody else.
One less game. But if they play as many ranked opponents as those teams, why does it matter?
One less game against? There's a big difference that, it's one less game when you're going up against Georgia. No, buddy, it doesn't make any sense to me. I'm sorry. It just doesn't. When my school's got to play Georgia in the SEC championship game and you get to sit there and put a Twinkie up your ass, no.
But this is why this whole thing is crazy. Notre Dame could end up being the number 1 team in the country, and they could go on to have to be then the 5 seed in this playoff. That's what I'm trying to get at. And go ahead. You made a joke about sticking something in my ass. Why I have problem with this is to put together a dominant season if you're Notre Dame, and then to immediately get pushed back all the way to 5 is where I have problem with it. You done laughing at your terrible joke?
No, it wasn't a terrible joke.
It's pretty stupid.
Okay. I look, I don't know if you don't want to have it in this situation. Again, do you not want a playoff game at home? I mean,
I do, but to this point though, you win your first round, you're the 5 seed, and then you come back around and you play a 4 seed. You don't get any more. You don't.
But here's my ultimate thing before we wrap this Notre Dame thing up.
Okay.
You have an ultimate advantage by not being in a conference for 1 week.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah, it is. It is an advantage.
And can I be honest with you? Going and playing Stanford, it's like playing an FCS opponent.
It's not. I think that this is going to more negatively impact the seeding on Notre Dame no matter what they do, because they're not an automatic qualifier. They're constantly going to be said and pushed down in the rankings. No matter how good they do during the season, they're going to – I think it's going to be even hard as shit for them to get to that 5 seed. I think we're going to constantly hear arguments against them, and it's going to be impossible for them to get that 5 seed.
If they play 10 Power 5 opponents, you won't.
Nobody plays 10 Power 5 opponents.
You do. You will.
Do they this upcoming year?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure you play 10 Power 5 opponents. How do I know your schedule more than you do?
I have terrible memory.
I do too.
Wait, they got 1, 2. They've Army, NIU.
Oh, I forget about
Miami of Ohio. Yeah, they're an American team now.
Hell, you can lose some.
Oh, and they play Navy. They only play 8. They only play 8.
So all those arguments that y'all make about the SEC having only 8 conference games. Look at you. You only play 8 Power 5 opponents. Elks70 says CC equals automatic bid, but not auto top 4. Good idea. What is he trying to say here? CC conference championship equals auto bid, but not auto top 4. Good question mark. Good idea.
I mean, that's, I think, where you and I could at least agree on, right? That if you win your conference, you should at least get into the playoff guaranteed.
Oh, no doubt.
Okay.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, you got to be in the playoff. If you win your conference, my only issue is I don't mind you being in the playoff. I mind you being a top 4 seed. That's what I mind. I just think it's absolutely ludicrous. It's insane. Cody McGee with a $4.99 super chat says that Notre Dame wants to have an auto bid in the playoff. Just join a conference.
It's not happening anytime soon. It's just not.
I don't think it is either. But again, let's not act like Joe. Last thing for me on this. Me and you both play college football. We know what happens when we have a bye week. You and I
Yeah.
both know what happens during a bye week. You come back re-energize. It's a big deal. It's a reason why the NFL, everybody's trying to do it in the NFL. Joe, it's a massive deal to have that first round.
But I would also argue, though, as we've seen happen a lot of times, and it's happened to Notre Dame a bunch, having too many weeks off in between games is also a negative.
Yeah, but 2.5 weeks isn't that bad. I mean, it's just
A lot of
exactly
time.
what the SEC champion will have. They'll have 2.5 weeks off.
But then Notre Dame has 3.5 weeks.
And you
right?
can also look at, you know what you could look at it as? A tune-up game before you got to go play Georgia. What about that? You get a tune-up game against Liberty before you go and play Georgia.
I just think, to my point, that Notre Dame would have to have an I think that the way that this has been structured, they'd have to have an impeccable season just to get that 5
And we
seed.
know that's not happening.
Oh, screw you.
I mean, we're having this argument acting like this shit's going to actually happen. Okay.
BetOnline remains your top spot for all of your live betting action and contests. NFL, college football, UFC, NHL are all in full swing. BetOnline is your number one source for wagering news, odds, trends, and predictions with both desktop and mobile access at any time. Head to BetOnline today and use promo code BELIEVE, that's BLEAV, for 50% off your first deposit. That is a 50% welcome bonus. BetOnline, where the game starts.